Hi, Grandma here, and I'm reading The Golden Globe, Chapter 2, second part. The first part had Ranofer walking along kind of slowly home and a roundabout way, thinking, trying to figure out how he's going to tell his half-brother that he no longer wants to cooperate in the theft of gold. Not that he cooperated before, but he believes that his brother is involved in this, the theft of the gold where he works, and that he has been somehow used by putting the gold into a wine flask and taking the wine flask back in. He did not put the gold in. He thinks that somebody else, the Babylonian, put the gold in. So here we go. Instantly, he was aghast at his own temerity. Gaboo had gone menacingly still. Indeed, he said softly, and what is in the wineskins save wine? Oh, you know that already, and Ibni knows, but I did not know until today. Gaboo moved closer, thrusting his face into the boy's. What do you know? Ranofer swallowed, pressing back against the wall in a vain effort to retreat. He knew nothing at all, nothing he could prove. I know gold has been missing from the shop, he insisted. I know they are weighing even the sweep. Indeed, said Gaboo again, but in a different tone. He straightened slowly and his great shoulders relaxed. His speculative eyes went over the boy so deliberately and in such pitiless detail that Ranofer became vividly aware of every defect in his unprepossessing small person, the ribs that showed, the undernourished arm and knobby knees, the dust rag of a shenty that always hung askew on his hips. By the time Gaboo turned his eyes away, Ranofer felt more insignificant than the lowliest beetle in the roadway. And what has all this to do with me? Gaboo said. I tell you the goldsmith is suspicious. I dare not carry the wineskins home any more, or they will. Worthless one. The heavy hand slapped back and forth across Ranofer's face almost negligently, yet with a force that twisted a crick in his neck and set his ears ringing. I know nothing of this gold. If you do, you had best pretend otherwise. As for the wineskins, they contain date wine, and you will bring them to me as before. Nay, I will not do it, Ranofer cried miserably. He knew he had failed. Everything had gone wrong somehow. Gaboo was no longer worried. He was only contemptuous. I will not bring them, he repeated. You'll bring them. Gaboo half smiled, his eyelid jerked. Are you so stupid that you do not understand? I know nothing of your stolen gold. No man can prove otherwise. If you would put your own head in a noose, you have only to go babbling to rake. My head? Ranofer stared at him bewildered. Then he felt his scalp prickle as he realized what Gaboo meant, why he had suddenly ceased to worry and why it was utterly useless to say a word to Rake. Gaboo would merely deny that he had ever seen the gold. He would deny any knowledge of the Babylonian, of the wineskins, of any part of it. He would shrug and shake his head over the wickedness of boys and point to Ranofer as the thief. Gaboo could be very convincing when he chose. And who would defend Ranofer? Not Ibni, certainly. He would only add his accusations to Gaboo's. Not Rake, who would be scornful and hurt. There would be no one except himself to speak the truth, and who would believe his tale? Bitterly conscious of defeat, Ranofer turned away and started for the storeroom. Instantly, Gaboo jerked him back. Where are you going, pig son? Did I say I was finished? I want my bread. I'm hungry. Your bread? When did it come to be yours? By Ammon, you have grown too top-lofty of late, behaving like Pharaoh instead of the gutter waif you are. I, a waif, and remember it. Where would you be this moment if I had not offered you food and lodging out of the goodness of my heart? sleeping in the dust of the streets, aye, and fighting the dogs for their leavings. Instead, you live comfortably on my bread. Well, it's mine too. I earn 5 debit a month and give you all of it. Gaboo's heavy lip curled. 5 debon, a fortune. It is all they will pay for porter's work. Ranofer was struggling against tears. Without hope, he offered the old plea. I could earn more, much more, if I could learn, become a pupil, a craftsman. Listen to the princeling. What do pupils earn? Nothing. They must pay instead for their instruction. Who would pay for yours, fatherless one, homeless one? The last words cut like strokes of a lash. Ranofer bent his head under them. An apprentice, then, if you would apprentice me to rake. Take care I do not apprentice you to some fishmonger, ingrate. I could have you bound over to myself at the stone-cutting shop. But did I? Nay, I found you work to your liking. Come, is it not so? Was it not I, Gaboo, who placed you in rake the goldsmith shop? Only to help you steal, Ranofer whispered. Watch your tongue. Gaboo raised one fist. With the other, he shoved Ranofer against the wall and pinned him there. The boy sucked in his breath, squinting in expectation of the blow, his back pressing against the rough bricks with their edges dug into his flesh. The fist knotted tighter, tighter. Ranofer, with every nerve and muscle taut, felt a wave of fear that was almost nausea. With a scornful laugh, Gaboo lowered his fist to his side, leaving the boy limp and covered with cold sweat. Look at you, the stonecutter jeered, cowering there like a cringing puppy. Can you not stand on your feet when I talk to you? Ranofer straightened, sick with humiliation. Accursed one, he thought. I hate him. I hate him. He makes me not only a thief, but a coward. It is only that I am hungry, he mumbled. Hungry? Always you are hungry. Why did you not dig yourself a few lotus roots while you dawdled by the river? Many such brats as you get nothing else and think themselves well off. The lecture might have gone on for some time, but Gaboo had evidently grown bored with baiting him. Still muttering irritably, he plucked the torch from its bracket and strode down the court. Ranofer followed in silence. The invariable reaction to a scene with Gaboo had begun to set in, a fatigue so deep it penetrated mind and body alike. Gaboo went into the second storeroom, emerging presently with one of the small flat loaves of Egyptian bread, but when Ranofer reached for it, he drew it back. Did the Babylonians say anything today for you to tell me? Wearily, Ranofer prodded his memory. Aye, he said he would send wine tomorrow. Good. Gaboo's eyelids fluttered as he stared fixedly at the boy. You will bring it, do you understand? He broke the bread, giving half to the boy and thrusting the rest into his mouth. I'm expecting friends, he mumbled through it. Open the gate when they come. Winking vindictively, he made for the stairs and vanished up to them, taking the torch with him. Ranofer stood alone in the dark courtyard, holding his piece of bread, half a loaf. It barely covered his palm, and the emptiness in his stomach felt as big as the whole temple of Ammon. The emptiness in his heart matched it. Gaboo's last warning had needed no underscoring. On dragging feet, he padded into the storeroom, felt his way to the big water jar, and drank thirstily. Afterward, he searched, though without hope, for another bite of something from Gaboo's meal, a forgotten onion, a mouth of stewed lentils. The storeroom yielded nothing more except the tantalizing fragrance from boxes and kegs, all sealed and forbidden him. He left it and crossed the courtyard to the farthest corner, where his sleeping mat was spread against a straggling acacia tree. Flinging himself upon the rough fibers, he held the bread to his nose, and its yeasty fragrance brought the saliva rushing into his mouth. He began to eat slowly, carefully, making each mouthful last as long as he could. All too soon, it was gone. leaving him only the craving for more. He lay back, pillowing his head on his hands. He could have given me the whole loaf, he thought. They are small enough at best. I could eat 20 of them, 30. The pig was punishing me for trying to defy him. If only I were free of him. If only I could climb aboard a boat and sail far, far away and never see this courtyard or the street of the Crooked Dog again in all my life. What if I tried? What if I ran away tomorrow? The thought filled him with the old panic. But what would I do then? He thought. How would I live? It was impossible. He would not think of it. He would think of the day to come when he was a man and would have gold of his own and could buy all the bread he wanted. But how could he get the gold if he grew up ignorant, fit only to be a porter? No matter, he would get it somehow, if only to be, perhaps he would find it. People did find gold sometimes hidden away in the crevices of the hills or under an old house buried there by someone long dead and forgotten. That was it. He would find it. Ranofer closed his eyes, smiling to himself. He could almost see the little gold ingots, row on row, lining the walls of some secret cave that only he would know about. He would take one home each week to Gaboo, and there would be no more beatings. Nay, there would be no Gaboo. He would have a house of his own. He, Ranofer, the son of Tutra. He would buy fresh salted fish and milk and lentils and a honey cake, many honey cakes. The golds would smile on him and Osiris himself. Osiris the merciful would speak out on the wind to him and direct all his affairs. And better than all, he would use the ingots for gold working. He would make a broad, fine bowl with a pattern of reed flowers inlaid in silver wire, and he would make a little eye paint pot with a hinged lid, and a bracelet, perhaps 2 bracelets. How would he fashion them? In the form of snakes, perhaps, with garnet eyes, or should he shape them like lilies with long stems twining around his arm? Like lilies, and they would be more beautiful than the moon, and all Thebes would stand in wonder before them. Zau the master would see them and would immediately carry them to Pharaoh, who would buy them for many coppers, and the fame of Ranofer the goldsmith would spread through all the Black Land. He would take a few pupils, only the talented ones, as Zau did, and become a knocking sounded at the gate. Ranofer jerked up his head and stared about dazedly. The stars had come out over the silent courtyard, revealing the rubbish-strewn pavement and peeling walls in all their ugly reality. He sighed, dragged himself to his feet, and walked across the court. The moment he unlatched the gate, it was shoved open with a violence that all but knocked him down, massaging his bruised ribs. He squinted resentfully into the glare of a torch. "Where is the stone cutter?" grunted a thick voice. It was Setma, the Nile boat captain. One needed only one's nose to recognize his characteristic aura of river stink and barley beer fumes. Ranofer jerked his head in the direction of the stairs. Up there. The man brushed past, almost dropping his torch in his unsteady progress along the courtyard. In his wake came along another man, a tall, stooped figure with a dark cloak folded about him like drooping wings. He was not drunk like the riverman, but Ranofer drew back from him instinctively. Wenaman, he was called. He was a mason. He paused, gazed at the boy a moment with glittering bright eyes, then followed the riverman to the stair on feet that made no more sound than a cave. Shivering, Ranofer latched the gate and went back to his mat. Gaboo was bad enough, but his friends were worse. Ranofer had long been sure that Wenaman possessed the evil eye. He fingered his amulet nervously, hoping it had protected him, but he knew it had no power over the evil eye. That required a different amulet, the Uzate, shaped like the sacred eye of the god Horus. His was only the life sign, Ankh, a green glazed cross with a loop top, tied to his wrist with 7 knots to bind his spirit in his body. He could remember the old magician his father had bought it from and how safe he'd felt when it was made fast over the exposed pulse through which his Ka might try to escape. Safe. Aye, it had kept his Ka in his body, but it had saved him from little else. Not from Gaboo, not from beatings and hunger, not from Ibni and his hate-filled wineskins. I'm going to pause there. On this, there's a picture. Down here, you can see there's a type of cross, and that's what an Ankh is. It's A-N-K-H. And that is the amulet that he feels is keeping him safe for now. Ranofer rolled onto his back, trying to switch his thoughts again to the secret cave of ingots, but the little golden bars kept turning into wineskins in his mind, or into loaves of bread that vanished when he tried to touch them. His stomach knotted with hunger and his mind with worry. He could not bring that accursed wineskin on the morrow, knowing what it contained, yet what would Gaboo do if he appeared without it? Fear dried his mouth at the very thought. He was afraid of Gaboo and his heavy fist, afraid of his own hunger, most of all afraid of the void that yawned always on his right hand, waiting for Gaboo to turn him out. Sleeping in the dust of the streets, fighting the dogs for their leaving. I'm a coward, he thought, a cringing puppy, as Gaboo said, and tomorrow I shall become a thief because I am afraid. Saying it even to himself without a sound somehow cleared his mind. He, Ranofer, the son of Thutra, a thief. Staring up through the ragged branches of the acacia to the stars spangling in the dark sky, he could see only the kind face of Rake, the goldsmith, rising before him in reproach. He turned over and flung an arm over his eyes. I'll not do it, he told himself fiercely. Never, never, not a grain of gold, not a scrap will I bring to that evil one. Let him beat me all that he likes. Let him have his bread. I'll find my own somehow or do without, but I'll be no thief. The reproachful face faded from his mind, and his tension vanished, driven out by the exalted sense of heroism with which his own words had filled him. He began to picture himself, a larger, more muscular self, nearly Gaboo's size, standing with proudly upflung head before the stonecutter, defying him, smiling coolly at his raging, easily sidestepping his poorly aimed blows, and walking at last from the hateful courtyard without deigning to glance back. Then he would go to the gold house of Zhao the master and beg to be accepted as a pupil. Had not Zhao almost said he would accept him a month before his father died, when Zhao had come to inquire after his own friend's health? He'd looked at the little cups and armbands Ranofer had hammered out, and he had said to Thutra, "Your son shows skill. Perhaps when he is older." Then the evil day of death had come, and old Mariah had told Ranofer, weeping, that there would be scarcely enough coppers left for bread after his father's tomb was furnished, and the embalmers paid, and the offerings made to the priests of the necropolis. He could not even go back to the scribe school where he'd been learning to read, much less think of Zhao, who charged a pupil's fee. Even though Zhao was there among the mourners at his father's house that morning, Ranofer had not dared to speak to him, but had stood watching him from a corner, thinking, later maybe, later when I'm older. All the world was grief and confusion that day. Then Gaboo had come, a solid form blocking out the sunlight in the doorway so that everyone turned to look. In the silence, he had stepped into the room as if he owned it, as indeed it seemed he did. He had a scribe's paper that proved his claim as firstborn. Before this stranger, with his scrap of paper, Zhao and Thutra's other older friends had stepped aside, departing one by one to their houses and out of Ranofer's life. Soon old Mariah vanished too. Gaboo sold her at the common slave market to pay for funerary arrangements. He sold the last of Thutra's gold work and his tools and his work table. Then he took everything left in the house, including Ranofer, and moved them to the street of the Crooked Dog, and that was the settlement of Thutra's estate. Ranofer found himself sitting up on his mat in the courtyard, staring blindly into the dark. Frowning, he threw himself down again, pulling an edge of the matting over his bare legs. No need to think about all that again, he told himself. All will be different now. I shall defy Gaboo. I shall leave the street of the Crooked Dog forever. Then anything will be possible. The gold ingots, those ingots in that hidden cave, I shall discover. I can use those to pay my pupil's fee. Then Pharaoh will buy my necklaces for Queen Tai, who is beautiful and kind, and she will smile on me, Ranofer, the son of Thutra, and I will not be a thief. Curled into as tight a ball as possible against the chill of the night, Ranofer slept at last. Wow, wonder what he's going to do. I don't know how he can get by with not stealing the gold. Maybe he thinks it is better to be with the dogs on the street than to steal gold. That's a very honorable position to take, but we'll see if he has the courage to do that. Bye-bye.